That's Nick.
And that's Joseph. And today we're here to talk about The Front Room, the directorial debut of Max and Sam Eggers, which A24 is releasing on September 6th, 2024.
Directorial debut.
Yes, they wrote the script for The Lighthouse for their brother Robert Eggers, a director who you know from The Witch and Northman and the upcoming Nosferatu.
What is The Front Room about? It tells the story of a newly pregnant couple who are forced to take in an ailing, estranged stepmother. What is your pull quote?
M is for the many things she gave me. O means she's most certainly au fait. F is for the front room she stole from me. Oh, I am not the one to play.
Mofo. Got it. Mine. The Front Room is a satisfying watch. However, I found myself frustrated that meaningful commentary on motherhood and race relations was bypassed to indulge in fart and poop gags. I did enjoy this film. It plays more like a dark comedy to me than what the A24 trailer led me to believe. So I think that sort of set me off on the wrong foot.
Sure, I mean, A24, I mean, that was a big deal with Robert Eggers' The Witch and how A24 marketed that film.
But even if I had gone in cold, I still feel like there's a lot going on and a lot of subtext, as we had talked about earlier.
Yeah, I think the power of the film really is in the subtext.
But by the time we get to the end, I was shocked because I thought we still had like 30 minutes left, which is good in that the film has really good pacing.
And left you wanting more.
And left me wanting more, but also I feel like I needed more to feel better about the story.
Yeah, it's curious. I think we spent a lot of time afterwards talking about certain elements we really wanted it to lean into.
Okay, I'm going to tell the story. It's pretty simple, but a big spoiler. So, Brandy Norwood plays Belinda. Mm-hmm. And she's married to a man named Norman, played by
Andrew Burnap, the Tony Award winner.
Norman is an attorney, a public defender, and Belinda is an anthropology professor. Mm-hmm. She's pregnant, and she's not happy with her job. It seems like even though she's no longer an adjunct professor, they're trying to like push her out by reducing her class, a number of classes. So she's unhappy. They're having financial issues when Norman receives a call that his father has died. So Belinda and Norman go to the funeral, and that's where we meet Solange, who is Norman's estranged stepmother.
Played by Kathryn Hunter.
And Norman has already explained to Belinda that his stepmother is like this fundamentalist Christian, and she has some problematic issues regarding race. So he's just not comfortable around her. Plus, it sounds like he grew up with her, mm-hmm. and she was very strict and controlling. So he's triggered at the thought of even seeing her. But when Belinda meets her, Solange is on her best behavior. And immediately we're told by the pastor of the church, or the preacher, that the dead father's final wish was that Norman allows his stepmom to move in with him. And to sweeten the deal, Solange is like, everything I have, I'm going to bequeath it to you. All my money, I even sold your dad's house, and you can have that money too.
Mm-hmm. I think this film is a perfect example of wish in one hand, shit in the other. More on that later.
So Norman's still like, no, I don't feel good about this. But Belinda, Brandy's character, she's like, we need the money. And she seems like a sweet old lady. And I think it'll be fine. Solange moves in. And immediately it's like, probably we're going to regret this. Because she's just manipulative and needs a lot of attention and is very domineering with her ideas.
She believes that she confers with Christ in a way that she calls it her signs and wonders.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
But the way the trailer makes it seem is like she has some supernatural ability, but she's really just a really religious old lady. Mm-hmm. So I was she didn't seem that foreign to me. Like, I feel like when I was a kid, I knew older ladies like that. Mm-hmm. So she's just kind of like an annoying, preachy lady who says the wrong thing at the wrong time. Belinda has the baby. And then we get a scene where Solange is at home with like some of her friends who are significantly younger than her, as in like they're middle aged while she's like a senior citizen. And when Belinda gets home with her baby, they're praying over her. So for a moment, and this is like at the hour mark, you're thinking, oh, it's like Rosemary's Baby type stuff. No, nothing like that.
And also the house has been transformed since Belinda's been at the hospital.
Solange has redecorated the home with all of her old furnishings. So it looks old-timey. But for about 20 minutes, we get Solange just being irritating. Like she's constantly like blowing a whistle to get Belinda's attention. Solange has issues with incontinence. So that's where the poop and fart gags come from, because we see her wetting herself, shitting on herself, having to be dragged to the bathroom. We see like a messy toilet several times, poopy handprints on the walls, and Solange likes to say MESS. I made a MESS. And it all culminates in one night. Solange is on one. She keeps saying, "Why can't I die?" Or like just moaning, "Why can't I die? Why can't I die?" over and over again.
Like we all do, okay?
I mean, yeah, that seems normal with my house, but we see Belinda walk downstairs and check on Solange, and Solange is dead to the bed. So we flash forward like what, 4 years maybe? Because now we see the little girl is like bigger than a toddler. And we see that Belinda and Norman have sold their house. They're moving. Belinda's pregnant with twins, and she's about to go interview for a job that sounds really promising. So the final scene is Belinda at this job interview, and she's saying like, "I'm so excited at this opportunity. Teaching is really where I need to be. I've never felt better in my life." And then all of a sudden she's like starts daydreaming, and we get a flashback to the night Solange died. And as you can predict,
Solange got her wish that night.
Belinda killed her ass. She smothered her with a pillow. The end.
Well, and then there's a nice, lovely autumnal scene where Brandy is singing Edith Piaf's
No regrets.
No regrets.
Yeah. So I think the highlight of this film and why I would totally recommend seeing it is Kathryn Hunter.
Oh, Kathryn Hunter's exemplary, yes.
I mean, this is very impressive work from her.
The physicality.
She walks with two crutches?
Yeah, she
or
looks
like canes?
Looks like a big spider / praying mantis.
And the sound editing, which I thought at times was a little over the top because they're amplifying her steps, but I thought, yes, the physical acting and just so Kathryn Hunter's character Solange has a southern accent, and I thought it was just she's just so charming in this evil way. She almost made me, for a moment, I'm like, I wouldn't mind if that were my grandmother, except that she would drive me crazy. But I feel like this is where some of the problems come into play. I would have handled that lady way differently than Brandy did. But
I mean, especially once they learn that Solange has paid off their house, it's like, well, we can afford at this point a PCA to come take care of
right,
you.
at the bare minimum. And when you start rubbing your shitty hands on my walls, you're going straight to the nursing home. We don't get any of that. Okay, first I want to start off by saying that I think that for a lot of people, maybe like me who saw the trailer, I think we would all expect Brandy to have her...
A moment.
You want to see crazy? I'll show you crazy moment. And we never get that.
No.
She's actually very subdued. Probably the most hype she gets is in the trailer because Solange keeps calling her Belinda because of her accent. And Belinda says, "It's Belinda," like yelling at her. That's about the extent of how hype her character gets. Even in moments where she feels threatened or scared, which aren't that scary or threatening, she never really stands up for herself. Even though her husband, Norman, is very milquetoast.
He's very passive, yes.
But here, let's start with a few things, because you brought up something interesting I hadn't thought of, is the names.
Yeah, so I think that's a good starting point for all the subtext going on. But Belinda, which I didn't know offhand, but apparently that's a name that means sacred or beautiful serpent. Yes. And a Solange, of course, is a little more notable, meaning solemn or religious. So it sets up this whole sacred and profane thing. And then with Belinda's occupation as an anthropology professor, kind of like mythological versus Christian. And then, of course, Norman. Any movie with a man named Norman who has mommy issues, is very much psycho. And I think both of those women are struggling to be the superior mother, and they're both kind of mothering him.
Right. I think what I needed at minimum is more of the battle between the two women fighting to be the queen of this home. Because clearly the quote unquote man of the house is not really in control. We really don't get that. Really what this feels like is very relatable to me of like, oh God, like the prospect of like your mother, like if you're a married couple with kids maybe, and your mother or mother-in-law moving in, and how disruptive and annoying that could potentially be. I got more of that in this film than anything that was horrific or thrilling.
Which is not without its own sense of very homebound horror, right?
Sure.
But in the title is the front room of the house they had intended to be for the baby.
It was fashioned as the nursery.
Yes, and she comes in, it's like, oh no, that's my room. But it also makes sense because she
can't walk upstairs.
They thought they were gonna make her go up and down the stairs. They were gonna trap her up there like Joan Crawford or whenever.
What do you think the title refers to beyond the obvious? Because I was struggling to give it meaning.
Well, the front room. Well, there's a hierarchical space assumption with that, but also in the history of architecture from Europe to the U.S. In the 19th century, the U.S. mimicked Europe with this parlor area, which was considered to have a front room in your house was considered not only respectable, but that you had there was a sign of wealth. And it was also the room that people went into to be, intimate and comfortable in. So it's a center of control, kind of.
That's better than what I was thinking, because I feel like it felt like the mother-in-law suite, like how a lot of homes have that, or they call it like the casita, and they're usually sort of
tucked away in the back.
They're typically as far as possible from the master suite.
Yeah, she's taking over prime real estate in this house.
She is, but she's also far away from the couple, which is something they comment on. Like, well, I guess it's better if she's not here because she can't hear us talking. I'm just going to go through my notes. As brilliant as I think Kathryn Hunter is in this role, did you not also think that she seems kind of too old to be Norman's stepmother? It seems like she'd be his grandmother because Norman looks young. That's my next note.
He is.
There's a comment made within the film regarding from Solange to... Solange is shading Belinda, saying like, oh, you're older than Norman. Brandy is like 12 or 13 years older than the Andrew Burnap. So I'm curious why they thought it was important to make that distinction, because in the film, Belinda and Norman look like they're the same age. Brandy looks fantastic. And I would never assume that, like, if I didn't know Brandy and I were the same age, I would think that she's the same age as Norman. So it's a curious choice to cast this woman who looks much younger than she is, but then make it a character, like a point in the story that she's older. Why do you think that was important?
I don't know if that was something worked in because of how the casting landed with Brandy being the lead. There's more than one reference to it. He's relaying a story about his tortured childhood and he's talking about Veggie Tales, and Brandy's like, that must have come after my childhood.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, so one of the things that I think maybe other people might also feel is Solange is, we could argue, certifiably racist, because she's a member of the United Daughters of the Confederacy, which is like this neo-Confederate, white supremacist adjacent group, like arguably a racist group. So she has her certificate, like she's proudly displaying it in her room, and the first time Brandy sees it, she does have a reaction that I thought, okay, I felt like the way Belinda's character was written and how she handles her racist ass stepmother is not unlike the movie Master Gardener. Who directed that?
Paul Schrader.
How there's a black female character who happens to be biracial, who falls in love with Joel Edgerton, who is also like a certified racist. And the way she reconciles that is of no consequence. Like, as the audience, we don't understand how this black woman was comfortable being in a relationship with this man. I feel like that's the vibe I get with this movie. Like, and I don't know, maybe because the fact that it's like who wrote it and directed it, that they just didn't feel comfortable
digging in,
really diving in.
Sure.
But I also know that Brandy commented that what drew her to the role was that the character wasn't so preachy. And I can appreciate that as well. However, it's like then the script shouldn't have made Solange so overtly racist. I feel the fact that you have this lady displaying her racist ass certificate forces me to want you to reconcile them.
I'm a certified racist. Yep.
Because if they didn't want Belinda to confront that, then they didn't even need to include that. They could have just made her this crazy Christian lady who's trying to impose all her beliefs on this. Because Belinda is a progressive person, right? She's this anthropology professor. She's educated. She even makes a comment because Solange wants to say grace at the dinner table and Norman doesn't. And Belinda says, well, we want to be respectful of everyone's beliefs.
Space for everyone.
Hold space for everyone. So Belinda is like very capable of processing all these feelings. So I don't know why you would make Solange racist, but then not have Belinda like really go in on that.
I think that there would have been more power in sifting through and also upping the tension to the escalation of what happens with a bunch of microaggressions, where it's like that Patrice O'Neal bit where he's like, I know this guy's racist and I can't prove it, but I know it. And there are microaggressions here. There's the thing about the child's name, which is a sequence that's in the trailer. I thought you people had really interesting names, that kind of stuff. But I think it could have gone a lot harder and a lot farther with that.
Oh, yeah, because harder, further, but still being microaggressions. Like, I was expecting there to be more time spent with Solange doing little things. Like, I was fully expecting her to try to touch Brandy's hair and maybe ask, is the baby going to have that kind of hair? I was fully...
How dark's the baby going to be?
How dark's the baby going to be? I was fully expecting there to be a scene where Solange is like trying to dip the baby in some sort of bleach or something, or scrubbing her skin, trying to make sure that it's light. I was expecting Solange to maybe do that thing with the nose to try to train it to not be so wide set. We don't get any of that. To the point where I felt like, again, Solange to me felt like all the old white ladies I remember from when I was a kid, who would say this crazy shit, and it's just like, well, that's just Bernice.
That's like, her generation.
That's just her generation, and whatever.
She's gonna die soon. How much do you want to argue?
She makes good bun cakes, so that's why we're here. I was expecting Solange to be a lot more vile than she was. Also, Kathryn Hunter doesn't read as white to me. Because she has this like tan leathery skin. She's wearing this Jerry Blank wig, but we see her without her wig on. Mm-hmm. And without her wig on, because there's a scene in the bathtub after she shits herself. I mean, you could have told me that lady was anything that isn't white, and I would have believed you.
Yeah, she could be racially ambiguous, but...
So I found that curious too, that especially because Norman, even though that's not his biological mother, Norman looks very white to me. So I find it funny that his sort of racially ambiguous, olive-skinned stepmother is racist. If it weren't for her southern accent,
well, it's frustrating because once there's this kind of war going on at home, this struggle between these two women, he really retreats. Like I think more purposefully than he needs to as a character, it retreats into work. He doesn't want to deal with it. Partially
because he's up for a promotion, so he keeps saying, if you can just give me time to get this in order, which, again, there are a lot of really interesting... the subtext is very interesting. It just doesn't get taken anywhere. The only thing that we really develop is kind of the humor and the gross out moments of the peeing and the pooping and the farting and one of the first gross moments that Belinda witnesses is Solange coughing, and she spits up what looks like runny mustard.
I wrote down that looked like turmeric, but
Or turmeric,
Turmeric.
water. But yeah, and then you see Belinda's face like, I don't know about this. That was kind of what we got the most of. And while we were in a screening with a full theater, there were a lot of laughs. I was laughing too.
And I think that those are all intentional, but mostly it's because of the games Kathryn Hunter's playing.
Oh God, there's a moment when she's reading her Bible and it's upside down. The faces she's making.
That was very Jerry Blank.
Yes,
moment,
she glares at Belinda, like clearly being manipulative. I, again, thinking about what the trailer was offering me, when we get to the scene where Belinda gets home from the hospital and we have these church people praying on her and they're speaking in tongues, it's very wild. It's just not much comes from Solange's beliefs, which, getting to the ending, I think I wanted to be pushed to the point where I understood how Belinda could kill her stepmother. Like, this lady drove her crazy. And she was just, because they're also alluding to like some postpartum stuff.
Yes.
Like maybe she's having some mental health issues because Belinda is hallucinating. We get moments where she sees Solange as like Mary Magdalene. We get moments where we get a moment where she thinks she sees Norman breastfeeding on Solange. We see a moment where Solange has like
6 breasts, like a wolf mother.
Yes.
Which reminded me of The Omen.
So then obviously it's like, wow, Belinda's going through it. But at the point where Solange dies and then we immediately learn that she killed her, I felt like Belinda's in the wrong here. She didn't exhaust every option to get this old wench out of her house. Right?
Sure, no, it's never right to kill.
So I mean, you know,
But
I'm
when,
quick to want to get rid of things and people, but in this instance, I felt like the film didn't take me where I needed to be to understand how Belinda could do this.
you wanted to get her off the hook. You wanted that cathartic
Yes.
moment. And I don't know, maybe in retrospect it's more interesting because it doesn't do that for us.
Maybe, but then I feel like it is playing with supernatural kind of stuff in a way. Like, so the United Daughters of the Confederacy certificate, the second time Belinda addresses it, she wants to get rid of it. And Solange says, well, if you take this necklace, which is like that fish, that's like the symbol of Christianity, I think. You see it on bumper stickers.
Yeah.
Solange says, well, if you take this necklace, you can take the certificate and do whatever you want with it. But then now the little baby is obsessed with the necklace, like out of nowhere. Like the baby will cry if the necklace is not hovering over it. I thought that was weird. Like, are we saying that the baby's entranced by it? We also get a moment where
They just need to go buy that baby a mobile. That's all.
we get a moment where Norman is walking downstairs with his baby, and the baby, he gets into it with Solange, with Belinda a little bit before he goes, oh, and by the way, why'd you bite the baby? And we see the baby has a big bite mark on it. And I thought that was weird. Like, if you thought your wife bit your baby, wouldn't you immediately be like, come upstairs, someone bit the baby? He's so casual about it. And then Belinda says, well, look at the bite marks. There's like a missing tooth. Because at one point, Solange hits her mouth and breaks the tooth. I thought that was really weird. Like,
Yeah, but it also, that kind of sets up, so Solange has bitten the baby, and her husband is clearly kind of teetering on not maybe believing her or being kind of there in a way that suggests that he might believe what Belinda says. So I don't know. After a fitful night of sleeping with the old lady downstairs, I can see that being smothered with a pillow seems like the answer.
I didn't feel good about it.
It's a movie that made me feel you can't have Smother without Mother. There's a Diane Keaton movie called Smother. I think.
I do think I would recommend this movie for Kathryn Hunter. I'm a huge Brandy fan, so I was like starstruck watching her on the big screen. So if you like Brandy, you should definitely watch this movie.
Well, and it's interesting. There aren't a lot of genre films with black women that are headlining.
And it is satisfactory. Like I did enjoy watching it, and I think The directors are twin brothers, and they look pretty young. You got a chance to interview them.
I did, yeah.
Related to a separate article you're writing.
About the evolution of psycho-biddy horror.
Yeah. So they seem cool, and I would look forward to their next film. I really hope people utilize Kathryn Hunter more while we have the chance.
It's based on a short story by Susan Hill, who's a British author that's best known for The Woman in Black, which was adapted several times, most notably starring Daniel Radcliffe several years ago, and had a sequel. But and of course, they made a lot of changes bringing it over into the U.S. But I think the production design is really interesting. Composer Marcello Zavros, who did the May December score, which is part of another recycled score, of course. But and then the cinematographer Ava Berkofsky, I think, does a lot of interesting work. She did a lot of episodes of Insecure, but because there is a visual tonal change that I think also works in very interesting ways.
What would you give The Front Room?
3.
I think it's good. I would give it 3 out of 5. Join us on Patreon and listen to our podcast. Bye.